All right, so let's just jump right into it. I want to talk about chapter 3 from Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, or as us Americans say, the Sorcerer's Stone, which is way better. And I just want to talk about the chapter and just see if you guys saw anything in it. What were some things that you saw that maybe were foreshadowing, or things that you really liked, or questions that you might have had on those chapters? Let's just open the floor. It's
Um,
always tough to start first.
I don't know if this is so much foreshadowing, but unusual. I found that, unless I misheard this, um, Vernon said something like, "They're not like you and me. These people," to Petunia, which I thought was weird coming from Vernon, considering surely Petunia would know more about them. Bit of a random point to start on, but nobody was saying anything. So,
When does he say that?
in that chapter, and she says something like they'll give up or something, and then he's like, um, "They're not
Oh,
like."
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I may be wrong. I did just listen to it like an hour ago, so I hope I'm not wrong.
I don't
But
know.
I
that's what I
just got
gathered
done
from
listening to it. You're right. That does happen.
Oh, good.
Yep.
I was losing my mind. Um, but yeah, I thought it was weird for Vernon to make that remark rather than Petunia, because surely Petunia should be teaching him about the ways of the wizarding world.
Is there any theories that Vernon comes from a magical family at all? Is there any like weird headcanon about that?
What, like Vernon's a squib?
Yeah. Or like maybe not, it just doesn't really recognize that he's an actual wizard.
Uh, I I remember something about Petunia have to telling him about magical people
Okay.
because of Lily.
I'm curious if there's been any like headcanon developed about Vernon. He's such a weird character to me. He's so, I don't know. I don't understand him. He just bullies
Also,
Harry all the time, and then there's even the one moment in the movies where like he kind of protects Petunia when Hagrid comes in, and it's like a decent moment from him, but he's just a weird guy.
what's weird about that for me is Lily would have probably told Petunia about Hagrid at one point.
Why do you say that?
Because Hagrid was working at the school when Lily was going there.
True, but I don't know how good their relationship was.
If you went to
Well, they're
school
like,
and there was a half giant working there, no
Would
matter
you
what your
tell-
relationship is with your family, and you want to tell somebody from the Muggling world, you would want to tell somebody.
yeah.
She'd absolutely have told Petunia. I'd never even thought of that, but for sure.
I'm actually not too sure about that. I would kind of debate that she wouldn't, because their relationship was so scarred, and they probably, I feel like maybe that they weren't not on speaking terms, but I feel like they were pretty close to not being on speaking terms as soon as Lily went off to Hogwarts. She might have told her
Regardless, it would have been
parents,
a
but
talking point at the
Lily,
dinner table because her parents were
yeah,
excited about
exactly.
it.
yeah, it's true.
Exactly.
Lily must been telling everything to their parents. Like they're muggles, they don't know anything. So she is just pouring all this information, and Petunia is just there looking bitter.
That's true. But I don't know.
It does kind of make you sympathize with Petunia in that sense, though. Like, I would be so resentful of a sibling if they were like, "Oh yeah," and then this like half giant was there and he was teaching us about these animals. Like every time you're at dinner and you're going, "Oh, I got a B in maths," and then that's just completely overshadowed by everything else.
Oh yeah,
Like I
the
kind of get
resentment
it.
is understandable.
Yeah.
I get it.
She's like,
Hogwarts
I
was
got a
way
B in
cooler than
math.
regular school.
And her sister's like, oh, Professor Binns, who's the
Maths.
ghost who taught me, You're like, what?
Yeah, for sure.
That's an interesting one. I know they like. I'm very curious what their actual relationship was after Lily went off and how close they were, or if Petunia just started putting up like walls immediately, or if it was just more of like a gradual thing. I don't know. It's a weird one, because although I don't know if she knows exactly about Hagrid, Petunia probably knows about like or heard about the half giant who's the groundskeeper. So I don't know. That's an interesting one. It's interesting to think about how their relationship might dissipate over the course of like a year or so, or 7 years.
Do we know which one of the sisters is older?
Petunia's older.
Oh.
Is she?
Yeah.
How do we know?
Not quite sure.
Just general
think it
vibe,
might
to be
be-
honest.
I think it might actually be in the book during the part where they do Snape's history, and then you find out that Petunia wrote to Dumbledore to ask to go to the school. I feel like it might be said there, but it might also be from Pottermore.
It makes sense that she would write, because if she's past 11, maybe she was like, maybe in her mind she would hope that she would get the letter. Like she would wait a year before writing to Dumbledore, and then when she didn't get in, then she would write the letter. But it seems like as soon as Lily got in, then she was like begging Dumbledore to bring her in. So it makes sense that she would be the older sibling. I've never thought about that though. That's an interesting question. There's also the question of, I mean, we've talked about this on the podcast. We've talked about this even in this specific discussion of the books. But why do you think the Dursleys just don't want him to get the letter? I just don't understand their motivation for not wanting him to get the letter. I mean, I know they're just terrible people, but they don't want him to be happy. And then on top of that, they don't want him to.
Her sister was murdered for being involved in the magical world.
Yeah. So do you think they're actually doing it out of protection for Harry?
I think so, yeah.
Interesting.
Nope.
I think it's more about not wanting a trained wizard in their house.
Yeah.
More protection for themselves than Harry.
Mm. That's an interesting one. More protection. It's kind of about themselves rather than Harry.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Well, maybe a little bit for Petunia, maybe Petunia again out of the jealousy, but I think when it comes to Vernon, he is just so like anxious almost about not fitting in with society and with his neighbors and everything like that. So I feel like with Vernon, it's not so much he's worried, maybe a bit of loss of control of Harry because he wants to be, in control of everything around him, and what he's putting out there. So I think Vernon and Petunia have sort of different reasons as to why they don't want Harry to get the letter.
Actually, something that I was thinking about this chapter relating to that is, so when Vernon and Petunia got together, do you think Petunia immediately told Vernon about the magical world, or only when Harry arrived at the doorstep? And how did she convince him? Like, I mean, she doesn't have any magic to prove, right? So, and he doesn't seem like the most understanding or tolerable when it comes to some weird things in life, right?
First date discussion. Hey, by the way.
I mean, in the first chapter, Vernon knew that the Potters existed and they were very different people compared to them. So I would think it would have happened sometime before that, maybe after marriage, who knows?
Mm.
Yeah, and Dumbledore left that letter, which is mentioned in the chapter when Hagrid shows up.
Mm.
So, unless Petunia hid that from him too.
Mm.
And like a follow-up question I had to that is, if Vernon wouldn't be in the picture and it would be only Petunia, do you think she would have acted the same in the sense of like trying to keep him away from the magical world?
Yeah, I think so.
Absolutely.
Because like he says, when we took him in, we swore we would stamp that nonsense out of him, right? And that to me sounds like more of a Vernon statement, but yeah, maybe it could have been just fully driven by Petunia.
Well, back to the whole Petunia thing. Her sister was murdered for just trying to build a happy family in the wizarding world.
Yeah, but I don't think that's her motivation, though.
Yeah, but
because you don't do that to a child, even whether your sister is murdered or not. So, no.
I think
No,
what's
because
really...
imagine you're.
Oh. what I was going to say is that I think it's really interesting that as toxic as they are, I think they actually really present a united couple. And I think that, um, yes, the statement is coming from Vernon, but I've always read it as like he's a really supportive husband. Toxic, but a supportive husband. So I've
Relationship
always
goals.
felt that it was from the point of view of Petunia told him about magic and he believed her because he really loved her. But uh all of her toxicity, of like all of her fear, that's the only perspective of magic he has. So of course he would want to be on her side of like stomping it all out of the world, and their only control is over Harry.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. In a weird way, I think he's actually a good husband. I mean, he's like a terrible person, but if for what Petunia was looking for and what she wanted, I feel like he kind of fit the bill perfectly.
I mean, yeah, he's a great husband. He's just not good at. He's not a good father. He's not a good uncle.
Yeah, he's not.
He's probably good at his job.
Yeah.
Maybe all right at his job. He scrapes by anyway.
Well,
But like, that's what Jabel said. I don't think that would be a very valid reason to keep him out of the wizarding world. Because, say, for example, his Lily died of some sort of Muggle accident. You wouldn't then stop your child partaking in anything related to that accident. You wouldn't then say, "Oh, my child now can't get on a bus." Say that there's a bus accident or whatever.
but if
So I don't know.
Yeah, but if your sibling died in a motorcycle accident, you might be extremely apprehensive about letting your nephew, who you now had to adopt, ride a motorcycle.
I don't know. I just feel like there's a difference between because a motorcycle is sort of an optional thing. But say, for example, it was a car, which is a lot more common, whereas the Wizarding World, you're preventing him from going to school, essentially, and being educated in the way that he needs to be educated.
Yeah, but maybe she used it as an optional thing.
Yeah, that's actually an
Like,
interesting
you don't
question.
have to do magic.
Yeah. What did they exactly mean by stamp it out? And maybe a larger question I have is, why didn't Harry become an obscurial? Like, is that only presented when someone knows about the magical world and then it's suppressed so they know what they're missing out on? Like, why doesn't Harry become an obscurial when he's being suppressed this deeply?
Because his magic isn't being suppressed.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, he's not purposefully repressing his magic and holding it in.
Okay, gotcha. That's interesting. I wonder, do you think that he could have become an obscurial if they told him straight up he was a wizard and then they suppressed him in that way?
Yeah.
I feel like he'd have to be suppressing himself. Like, I feel like he'd have to be consciously suppressing his magic. I feel like potentially if they'd have told him when he was young and raised him constantly to be like, "You're a wizard, this is bad, you need to keep it locked up." And if they'd maintained a good relationship with him as a child, and then that he would have trusted them, I feel like in that sense, then maybe he could have been. Obviously, that didn't happen.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I feel like all the obscurials that we know of are more self-repressive than like outer force repressive. They're more like lacking in confidence is the wrong word, but they're
self-repressive because of outer forces.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I don't know if Harry would have been.
So do you think?
I think he's too much of a rebel to do that.
Do you think Kendra was actually trying to do the opposite of trying to get the magic out and for her to feel normal, like basically therapy, like try to get through the trauma of her having done magic and then feeling guilty that I guess the father went after those 3 kids, and like what all of like her doing the magic did to the outer world, and she's trying to repress that, and now she tries to like hold it back, and this makes her an obscurial, and maybe Kendra was trying to like get her to accept that it's okay and like get her magic out again and try to stop to repress it.
That's a pretty common theory about how Kendra died. Is because she went full obscurial. And then,
Yeah, that's always what I garner too, especially when the Fantastic Beasts movies came out. I feel like it was pretty universally adopted that she was an obscurial, and that's kind of how she died.
Yeah.
But the your main question is a really interesting one though, for exactly how it happened. If it was like the opposite of Harry, I don't know. Because yeah, I'm curious if like if you could stop the obscurial process in the moment that it's happening. Like if someone's on the way to becoming repressed, if like what kind of magical therapy could you perform in order to wean someone off of becoming an obscurial, if that's even possible?
Just teach them reparo. Have them do it a bunch.
Yeah, for real.
Can you just repair yourself, or like how does that work?
Yeah.
That would go down a hit in the
I wish,
Muggle world.
yeah, wish that worked on the mind. That'd be great.
I know, yeah, therapists would be out of business. We'd all just be repairing everything. Yeah, I wonder if there's some sort of like wizard therapy where they can, you know, if you're on track to becoming an obscure, that word, sorry, you could just sort of, I don't know, learn ways to bring your magic forward in a better way. I don't know.
Yeah, like learning just a bunch of good household charms. You know, dust things, repair a couple things, do little small stuff so you're not fully repressing it.
Honestly, quick spells is a good solution to that. Quick spells, rather than being for squibs, is probably great for obscurials, for young people who are getting their magic suppressed.
Like the complete opposite to a squib.
Yeah, seriously, yeah.
Same target audience.
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah.
That's an interesting one.
Yeah, they should start a new ad campaign.
Yeah, for real. It's interesting how they talk about them stamping out magic of Harry. Like, I wonder if they actually think it's possible, or if they're just saying something like that.
Yeah, I think they're just trying to keep him out of the wizarding world.
They're
going about it all the wrong way, but it's... Yeah, I think Harry's just a reminder of Petunia's lost sister. And as long as Harry lives, she has a reminder. And if Harry goes into the wizarding world, then he's in danger.
Yeah, for sure. Changing tunes a little bit. What do you guys? Can you guys give me all the details that you know on the letters that get sent out? I know some of you guys know. With like we were talking about the book of what is it? The book of quills, right? And the what is what's the other one?
Quill of acceptance.
Yeah,
and the book of admittance.
Yeah, there you go. How do the letters get sent out?
I was going to research this before we did this, and it just completely escaped my mind because I don't remember if this thought came from myself or if it came from the internet somewhere, which is why I was going to research it. But I have / somebody I saw has a theory that there's in the postal service there are some either squibs or muggle wizards that work for the postal service, because when people first get their acceptance letters, if they come from a muggle family, I'd imagine it doesn't come via owl. I don't know. So perhaps there's, or to give post to the minister or whatever, maybe there's some inside work going on with some squibs that are sort of delivering
I kind of like that,
type letters.
I'm never gonna look at my postal service workers the same way. I'm gonna be like, which one of you guys is the squib?
Exactly.
If I'm not wrong, the letters to Muggleborns come like someone from the Ministry of Hogwarts, like brings the letter to them.
It's like hand delivered, right?
Yeah.
Because they have to explain everything.
Yeah, but even in Harry's case, like we see a milkman delivering like 24 eggs filled with letters. He looks like that he's confounded. Someone has to have confounded him, right? So
yeah,
he's a squib.
No, I think he's only confused because he has to deliver it through the window instead of through the door, because Vernon has boarded up the door.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
He's a milkman delivering eggs.
I feel like that's
Yeah.
dairy. I feel like
I
you could
feel like
probably do
that's-
that.
Okay.
Yeah. Trying to picture my local milkman just does milk, but I'd imagine some of them.
Do you still have a
I'd
local
imagine some-
milkman?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't get milk delivered, but
That's
there is a
crazy.
milkman that tries to. I know he comes around at like 4 a.m, so I know that if I hear the milkman outside, I should go to sleep. That's my alarm. But I'm trying to picture his cart, and I don't think he does eggs. But maybe they did in the 90s or 80s when this was. Perhaps.
I just wonder who put the letters in the eggs. Like, I can imagine just, I mean, I don't think it's Hagrid, but
That sounds
maybe
like a Dumbledore
Yeah,
specialty.
just having fun.
I know.
Well, what I found interesting is that the letter is written by McGonagall. So
Yeah.
is McGonagall the one that's doing all this? Because I think of her as such a stern person,
Yeah.
and then all of these delivery methods are so creative that it either shines a different light on her or it's somebody else doing it.
I kind of
Maybe
like
she
that.
has a bet going on with Snape.
McGonagall is like second in command, so she writes all the letters.
You know how many
And
letters
then-
she's writing to Harry, especially in the movies? Like, she's like,
Yeah.
she has to keep writing these down. She's
you
like,
know,
will he freaking just get this? She's like, what way can he get this? Maybe if I put them in eggs, I can stop writing these stupid letters.
Yeah, but I think it's Dumbledore like putting them in the eggs and stuff.
Yeah.
Because he's like, nah, Harry has to get this letter. McGonagall, keep writing. That's it.
I think it has to be like a magic photocopy or something, because I don't think she's writing it herself.
Yeah.
Oh,
100%.
of course, that's what it is. But for the
I mean, yeah, the quills are automated, so
Yeah.
I also find the magic that is like tracking them really interesting
Mm.
because we talk about tracking later on, right? And how in the second book they know that magic happened at the house, but they don't know who did it. Yet they know that he moved from under the cupboard to the little bedroom.
Yeah, I think Hogwarts just has access to that specifically for delivering letters from
Yeah.
the ministry.
It's a little creepy, though, to be honest.
And I could totally
Yeah.
get. I sound like I'm completely defending Petunia and Vernon the whole time. I promise I am not on their side, but I would also be totally freaked out if I found out that these people knew every single thing I was doing.
Oh, yeah.
Down to like moving his bedroom, and like I'm not saying I would move to the other side of the country, but like I would definitely be like completely freaked out and probably boarding my doors up, to be honest.
Yeah. Because what did the letter say when he was even he was at the motel? It had a different address. What did it say when he was at the shack? Did it say like shack on the rocks or something like that?
Yeah, it was like
Yeah.
a little shack on the rock or something.
Man, that's kind of creepy. If you're the Dursleys, you're like, how much do they know of us? And do they
Would've been
only
extra creepy.
yeah? Do they only know about wizards, or could they track something that the Dursleys did?
It would have been extra creepy if they did little shack on the rock, sleeping on the floor.
Yeah, for real. Yeah.
it is that.
I think it is that.
It says,
Yeah, doesn't it say sleeping on the
says-
floor?
Mr. Harry Potter, the floor, hut on the rock, the sea.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Okay.
There's a way that they have to be knowing what they're doing, because like this in Half-Blood Prince, like Dumbledore told them that they treat Harry bad, so they know what's going on.
Hmm. And how do
That
those two,
tracker is super accurate. I
Hmm.
don't like that.
how does that work, and how does that correlate with underage magic though? I'm sure maybe is there like a deeper trace on you when you're pre-11, and then when you're 11 it's like okay, so like the exact precision tracing goes away and then just like the generic tracing stays? Because he gets traced when he does magic, but he's wrongly accused of doing magic.
Yeah, I think the trace is there, and it's still super accurate, but they can't tell who did the magic. They just know where
Yeah.
you are and
Yeah.
where magic happens
But if they knew
around the person being traced.
yeah, it's true. If they knew your exact location, maybe they'd be more apt to like know if you did it or not, or if there was like, how do they not know of Dobby doing magic in that house? I guess they don't care about house elves that much. Maybe it just says something about the Ministry of Magic. They don't like care to track beings that they deem lesser than or something like that, like something as insignificant as a house elf. But it's such a weird one.
Yeah.
Let's say
I mean, I suppose
But
let's say somebody's tracking you through your phone and the microphone's on and you're standing in an area, they know exactly where you're at. But the microphone's on and somebody next to you fires a gun. They know a gun was fired, they don't know who fired the gun. I think it's kind of like that.
Yeah, but how
what
do
I
they
find
know
weird.
if Harry is reading the letters or not?
Yeah, maybe it has to break the wax seal or something like that. There's like a spell in the wax seal.
The first letter that comes,
now.
Vernon reads it.
Yeah, it's true.
So someone has read it. It's not like no one has read it.
It's facial recognition.
The letter asks
before.
for a reply.
True.
Yeah, they don't get a reply, so I guess, yeah. But doesn't another letter come the next day?
Yes.
How fast is I mean, wouldn't it on average? Owls are slow birds, so wouldn't on average be like a few day journey
UK
back
is
to?
really small.
Yeah, it's true.
Then maybe it was the actual postal service next day delivery.
Yeah, true.
First class Royal Mail.
He's Harry Potter after all.
But if there was that much of a trace on him before the age of 11, then that brings me back to why did they let him suffer for so long? If they knew that he'd been living under the stairs and that he never got to go out and do fun things, he was just sent to Mrs. Fig, who obviously was keeping an eye on him, but obviously not very well. Sorry, Mrs. Fig. But like, if she was like talking to Dumbledore, and they had all of this tracking on him, why did they not send anything threatening earlier?
Dumbledore wanted to humble Harry because he knew he was going to be super famous when he entered the Wizarding World.
Well, that's like the typical thing that people
humbling a child and abusing a child.
Character development.
I'm gonna humble you and teach you the ways. Like you're gonna sleep under the stairs.
It's the same reason why
Stop
Dumbledore
splitting
hired
hairs.
Gilderoy in the second book. He didn't want Harry to become a pompous prick.
Well, it's actually really interesting, even thinking about what Harry was like as a baby. Like, I'm curious if Harry was put under the cupboard under the stairs as soon as he was a baby, and maybe they like soundproofed it so that they wouldn't hear him crying or something like that, which is really tragic because I can't imagine that they would even want to like take care of him that much as a baby. I mean, he was 1 year old when he was transferred over. He's still like, what is he, barely crawling, or is he's probably crawling around, but like I'm curious how deep that went, and if Dumbledore is just chilling in his office pinpointing the exact location where Harry is, which is the cupboard under the stairs,
I think,
when he's a 1.5-year-old, and he's like, oh, this will humble Harry.
This will humble him. Yeah, locked in a room, perfect, exactly what we wanted.
No,
in my head, Dumbledore has made a Marauders map of the house of the Dursleys, just to track where everybody is.
Kind of like that.
I like to think that they just took care of Harry as like a normal baby, and then when he started to show like signs of some magic, then they were like, nah, into the cupboard.
That's kind of true. That's what they do.
I just can't imagine Petunia potty training Harry.
Right?
Like, I can imagine that.
Oh, she'd do it with negative reinforcement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a miracle that Harry's not a bedwetter, honestly, when he goes to Hogwarts.
I know,
like,
seriously, yeah.
The stress of his upbringing. But I think, like, because the letter from Sirius to James and Lily, or the other way around, sorry, they were saying that Harry was already loved his little toy broom thing that was flying around. So I'd imagine he was at least able to sit upright by the time he was sent to the house.
Or maybe he was flying Ling, like horizontally on the stick. Maybe he was that efficient at flying, you know.
So it only went like 6 inches above the ground.
No, but yeah, but I mean, you'd still want to be like able to sit upright and hold your head up.
Yeah.
He has tummy time on his broom. He's flying around, trying to lift his head.
One of those rings that babies sit in,
Yeah.
they bounce on the door, maybe one of those. Yeah. So, well, that makes me think maybe he was showing signs of magic that early on, because if his brain was already in that magical world, even if he doesn't remember it, I don't know, maybe he was still, had the word broom in his mind. He was trying to hop on the broom when Petunia was trying to mop, and she was like, none of this, under the stairs.
Yeah, seriously. Man, that's weird. That's tough.
I think what stood out to me in reading these chapters the most is how emotionally stable Harry is. Because you would just think that someone with so little love in his life would not have the emotional stability that he has. And then also just how sassy he is, right? This is the chapter about where he tells, or Dudley's like threatening to flush his head, and he's like, oh, the toilet's never seen anything as ugly as you, and then like runs away. And there's something else that he does, and I can't remember what it was, that I was like, oh,
I didn't think the clothes had to be so wet.
But yes, that one, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what's really interesting to me, is how much personality he has, how stable he feels, and yet is in this family that isn't loving at all to him.
It's all he's got. It's his sass and his sense of humor and everything. That's all he has.
Yeah. It's a good lesson about comedy too, and I feel like sometimes that's the only way that you can get through situations like that. But his resilience in the first few chapters astounds me, of how this kid's actually able to work through those things.
Yeah, when they went to the zoo and he got the lemon snow cone or whatever. And he's like, I got some.
Yeah. It's like he got half of the Knickerbocker glory that Dudley had already eaten. He's like, this is great.
Yeah.
Do you think he feels lonely?
Oh, man.
Because I imagine you cannot feel it to that extent if you never had any friends. And I mean, we know that he feels very lonely in the second book at the beginning when he's not hearing from his friends. But during his whole upbringing, he never really got to have any friends, right?
Yeah, it just is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how he'd feel lonely when the only alternative he knows is to be around people that are not nice to him. So I think maybe he unlocked the lonely trait after the first one when he leveled up to year 2. Then he was like, oh, just unlocked loneliness. And that's how he felt it then, because I don't know, I couldn't really imagine him. If he was lonely, I can't imagine he realized what loneliness meant. I don't know.
But even then, Harry is surprisingly optimistic, because he's always just 3 months. That's it. Just got to deal with them 3 months out of the year. Just keep quiet, do my own thing, and then back to Hogwarts, and let's go have fun.
Yeah, he's definitely holding on as much as he can in the summers that he has to go back. You guys see anything else in this chapter?
Yeah. So Dudley switched his parrot for an air rifle. Now, Dudley's 11 years old. What is an 11-year-old doing with an air rifle? Well, to be fair, I don't know what the laws are in the rest of the world.
Shooting parrots.
In the UK, you are absolutely not allowed to own an air rifle at 11 years old.
Well, maybe in the 90s you were, or the 80s. Yeah.
Maybe.
This is where the movie comes from. You'll shoot your eye out, kid.
Yeah, this is late. Yeah, we're currently. Yeah, so he probably did it in 89. And then, yeah, because this takes place in 91.
Yeah, I suppose. But to get it from school, I mean, I don't know. As a UK resident, it's very jarring for an 11-year-old to have even an air rifle. When I heard that, I was like, that's wild that he's just getting that from school in exchange for a parrot.
And
Anyway.
well, the parrot's the weird part for me.
Oh.
Yeah.
We're two very different people. To me, I'm like, parrot, yeah, absolutely, no worries. No.
I grew
Did
up
you
in
not
a
have to
very
bring a
small
parrot to
town.
school, Dane?
I grew up in a very small town. We had a skeet shooting team, and people would walk through the school with guns all the time.
Wow.
It's not.
I mean, in the UK, we just all bring parrots to school. It must just be
Everyone has a parrot on the
cultural
shoulder.
differences.
Just in case you want to become a pirate.
Yeah.
Well, exactly. Pirates in training.
Yeah.
That's what we do here.
Any other points in this chapter before we go on to the next one?
I was just wondering, is there any significance to the color of the ink? They always specify it's green. Also, like on the cake icing, the writing is green. And I was like wondering, like, I mean, we know that Slytherin is green, and we know that Slytherin is kind of the house for the purebloods, and maybe like magic, the color of magic is green. I don't know.
Is Harry colorblind? I
Green?
can only see green.
I mean, green and purple are mentioned very often, so I think
Yeah.
they represent magic in some way.
Mm.
Maybe the admissions book just thought he was going to be in Slytherin
Hmm.
because the sorting hat did until he said otherwise.
Ah.
So maybe the admissions book also has a bit of an idea.
Then I feel bad for all the Hufflepuffs because they cannot read it with
Yeah.
yellow ink.
Yellow ink on like yellowish parchment. You're like, what?
You're trying to put it in the right angle
Yeah.
for the light to catch it.
Yeah.
Green is also the colors of headmasters and headmistresses, so I think that's why McGonagall's like writing is in green.
Plus, you want to be flashy if you're gonna be like, "Hey, you're a wizard."
Yeah.
You know.
Gotta look good.
Like in my school, all the principal and every school I've been in, all the principals and headmasters had green pen that they used for every official work. So I assume it's the same thing, but
Oh, another thing. I don't know if it's the end of this chapter or the beginning of the next. Vernon just buying a couple bags of chips for rations. Are you serious?
I feel like that kind of shows how degraded his mind is at this moment. That's always a really fun. This chapter is really funny because the lengths with which he goes to just evade them. He's like going so out of his mind that he's just buying a bunch of bags of chips for rations, and they're trying to ration. So
Also, where did he buy the gun?
It's a great question.
it's an air rifle.
He fully swapped it for a parrot down at the club.
Yeah, he had an extra parrot. They had 2 parrots, and then he swapped them.
Yeah, 1 parrot for an air rifle, 2 parrots for a full-on shotgun.
Vernon secretly does muggle magic on the side. He doesn't tell Petunia. And he just keeps parrots in his pockets.
Do you need a license to carry guns in UK? Because I know here in America everybody can go to Walmart and buy a gun.
Yeah, that's why it
No,
didn't
you
seem weird to me.
absolutely
But
need a license here.
Mm.
Like the only people that have them really are like some farmers. But never in my life have I known anybody that's owned a gun or seen one except for like the armed police, which is again very rare. But again, like it was probably a bit different in the 90s. Well,
yeah, I was
late 80s, early 90s.
I was going to say as well, there were
oh, yeah, not one
probably when this book was written, there were like slightly different gun laws at the time. So I think it probably was a bit easier to own a gun, like when this book was written.
Yeah. As tragic as it sounds, like all the mass shootings probably weren't really happening at that time. So in America, they probably have all sorts of different regulations at that time. Same thing with in Britain. They have all these different regulations. I mean, it was like, what, 30, 40 years ago? So definitely different times back then.
Yeah, to be fair, like there were less strict laws, but then there was one mass shooting incident in a school, and then immediately it just became illegal, and it has been since.
In the UK,
So
really?
maybe this was, yeah.
Wow.
Everybody just voluntarily gave in their guns. I wonder if Vernon did. or if he clung onto it. Like,
Would he? That's the real
like,
question.
I need to keep hold of it.
Well,
a giant
Hagrid
came
tied
into
it
my
into
house.
a knot. It was a useless gun, anyways.
I could just imagine, like, when they're going around collecting all the guns of everybody in the UK, and Vernon's just like, no, you have to believe me. There's a giant that's out to get me. He'll knock my door down. They're like, whoa, man, just give me the gun.
It is really funny how even when you're saying that, Becky, it's funny like the lengths with which they go to act normal and to seem normal. Like it'd be, that whole situation is really funny, but Petunia wouldn't even let him go do that because she's like, we can't even let people know that we have seen like in a half giant, because as soon as we say that, people are gonna think we're out of our mind. And every length they go to just try to perceive themselves as like normal people. Even like to me, the which book was it that they go away for the like the best manicured lawn. Yeah, I'm like, that is so boring. I'm like, I'm into growing things, I'm into plants and all that kind of stuff, and I'm like, that is just next level.
Oh, I've known some people from suburbs like that.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely a suburb thing, yeah.
But imagine like somebody had to distract you and get you out of the house, and they used a tidiest lawn competition. You'd really have to reflect on your life and think, what kind of person am I that this person went 100% chance they'll leave the house for this tidy lawn competition? Right. Like, honestly, how embarrassing.
You don't have anything going on.
Yeah, for real, honestly, yeah. They're really self-contained too. I'm actually curious if Vernon and Petunia have any friends, or if they've gone into such like, and maybe it's an interesting question to ask why they don't have friends. Do they not have friends because they're going into such self-preservation modes? Do they have a need of a friend, or are they doing it because they have each other and they really don't care for having friends? Or are they just trying to protect themselves so much where they don't care for having friends?
No, it's because they're heads of the HOA and they complain about everybody else.
Yeah, it's true. No one likes them.
We know that Petunia has a friend called Yvonne, right?
Yeah.
Who is on vacation in Mallorca. So at least one person.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's just a person that does her hair.
It's like, yeah, she has people she can gossip to, I guess, but
no real friends. It's just like convenience.
Yeah.
For like people that they just need in their life for something.
It's like utilitarian, yeah.
And I just feel that they will, if they had some friends, they will have to be equal or lesser than them because they feel like they have to be the best at everything. For example, the lawn thing, like why you care about having the best lawn in your neighborhood or something like that.
Yeah.
I find it interesting. So to me, Petunia's desperate need to like seem appear normal is coming from as an overcompensation from her magical sister, right? And I would be wondering or curious if she would actually meet Vernon or fall in love with Vernon, who also has a similar mindset, if her sister never was like magical. Like,
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess we don't know much about Petunia from before Lily got sent to Hogwarts. But I mean, kids are kids, aren't they? I don't know.
Well, we know she wrote a bunch of letters to Dumbledore to try to get accepted and go to the school. So they had a really close relationship before the whole "you're a witch, Lily." I don't know.
All right, you guys got anything else in this chapter before we go on to the next one?
The hotel that they stay at it's in Cookworth, and Cookworth is the same town where Spinner's End is. So technically, Snape, Lily, and Petunia grew up in Cookworth, probably close to the hotel. Who knows?
No way. I wonder if they probably. I wonder if Petunia knew the hotel that they were staying at. Maybe they had there's some history there.
Ooh, maybe she went there on prom night.
Ah.
I know you don't really have that in the UK. But it's just...
that's just a disturb. Well, do you think she went to prom with Vernon?
Yeah, when did they meet?
They've known each other that long.
Ooh, I don't know.
It would make sense because they had Dudley quite young.
Yeah.
Yeah, early 20s.
I always imagine Vernon being a little older than Petunia, though.
Maybe he was a teacher.
Ooh, wow, scandalous.
A janitor or something. I don't know.
Well, no, because he's high up at the drill company, so he probably started at like the mailroom there.
Well, I think if he was, I mean, I was kind of joking about him being a teacher, but I think if he was a teacher, he probably would have had to have left his position to move to drills. I don't know. But I don't know. I think it would make sense for them to have met in school, or at least or just after school, because they do seem like the type of couple that would want to do it by the books, and move it, like marry, move in, then have a child, blah blah. So let's
date for 6 months, get married, have a kid.
They do seem like they would be people that would do it by the books, but do you actually think they did do it by the books? I mean, having a kid that early is slightly shocking. The same thing, maybe the same question. Oh yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Same thing with Lily and James. Did they get married before? Like, do we have a date of their marriage or of their wedding? Did they get married before?
No evidence they actually got married.
Yeah, for sure. That's even what I'm thinking right now. There's no real evidence that they were actually married. I'm curious if they just kind of like had Harry, and then I don't know. It's an interesting one.
But they were also in the wizarding world, so they probably would have done a shotgun wedding because Voldemort was at large.
Does it say that? Did any of the Marauders say that they went to the wedding or something like that, or are they?
Yeah, there's photos of the wedding.
That's right. There's photos of the wedding. Yeah,
Sirius was the best man at the wedding.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Oh, I think it probably was while Voldemort was at large, so I'd say it was a bit of a quiet do.
Petunia in this chapter says, then she met that Potter at school, and they left and got married and had you.
Gotcha. So even in this chapter.
And then Molly said when Voldemort was at large, a lot of people were getting married pretty quickly because it was just
I'm excited.
Something to do to lighten the mood or something.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of excited to talk about that. It's going to take us years to get there, but the Tonks and Lupin relationship and the rush into that, we want to talk about that.
Put a timestamp on this. We'll talk about it in about 4 years.
Yeah, maybe we'll just keep doing 2 chapters at a time so we can kind of book our way through this a little quicker.
Maybe Lily and Petunia's weddings were in the same year, and that's another reason why Petunia, because it's like Lily's overshadowed her whole life. We're going to Hogwarts, and then just the cherry on top, she goes and gets married in the same year as her, and then, as if she didn't have enough attention, she then went and died, like the ultimate attention.
Do you think Petunia might have rushed her wedding to Vernon in order to get married before Lily?
Yeah, I could see that.
Maybe, yeah.
That's so interesting that you say that too, Becky, because one of the lines is she went and got herself blown up and we got landed with you. There's like resentment in that line.
Oh, yeah.
Where she's like, she went off and did the ultimate thing that puts all the attention back on her, which is tragic, getting herself blown up. But you can see the resentment in that line.
That's a good point, actually. Yeah, make it seem like she'd, well, obviously not done it on purpose, but like that was a thing that she got herself into.
So I'm actually that's even really interesting to see if was Petunia maybe abused as a child, or like neglected, maybe is the better word.
Neglected for sure.
I don't think she was abused or neglected. It was just parents sometimes forget, they have a witch in the family, so they were giving a little more attention to Lily on that part, but I don't think it was also on purpose.
I'm not saying it's purposeful neglect, but definitely some sort of neglect because they're giving all their attention to Lily.
Yeah, but
it's
also
really
I don't think
cool
Petunia
magic.
Also, I don't think Petunia got married at the same time as Lily. Like, I needed to do it first. She was a little older than Lily when she got married, so I don't think she was in communication to know she even got married at the same time.
Well, they were sending letters.
Yeah, I was looking.
They would have known because again, the parents. if they were still alive at the time. We don't know when the parents died. We have to assume that they did die.
I was looking it up, and every source I could find says Petunia is anywhere from 1, maybe 2, or 5 years older than Lily. And
wow,
so we don't know how old Petunia actually is.
That's crazy that like JK's not confirmed that.
I know, for real.
All of the random things that she's confirmed, and she's not confirmed Petunia's age.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought maybe like a year older would be reasonable, but
yeah, I always assumed it was sort of a similar age gap to Harry and Dudley.
Mm-hmm.
But that was purely my assumption, which cannot always be trusted.
What is the age gap between Harry and Dudley?
I think it's only like a month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
So.
Never mind that. In that case, they're definitely not the same.
Yeah, because it's Dudley's birthday in the first chapter.
Yeah,
second chapter?
that's right. Yeah.
And then now it's Harry's birthday in this fourth chapter.
Oh yeah, and they're starting school at the same time. I always assumed they were like a year apart, but
yeah, and they're and they're in the same class, which is why Harry doesn't have friends. Is Dudley will beat him up with their friends.
The comment that you made about is Petunia neglected. I don't know if I would go that far, but Lily is gone for like 9 or 10 months out of the year. So I would imagine that those 2 months that she's actually home, not at Hogwarts, her parents would save all the like special things for that time. You know,
well,
like family vacations, or so it would feel like, oh, we're doing fun things because Lily's here.
Yeah, it's true. Becky and Natalie, is Petunia in boarding school right now? I don't know anything about the British educational system. Is it optional to go to boarding school? Like, is she going away to school? Because Dudley goes away to school, right? He's not going to like
Oh, I thought you said Petunia in boarding school.
Well, I'm asking that question too. When Lily is going off to Hogwarts, is Petunia going off to another school to board at that school?
No, I'd imagine she's just a day student.
Okay.
I can't imagine why she would have been sent off.
Was Dudley a day student at what was his school? Smeltings,
yeah. I don't know if they'd send little Duddykins away to boarding school.
That's true.
I don't know. He's definitely in a private school.
Well, I was gonna say it's either private school or like a grammar school that he's gone to, because they specify how he's going to a comprehensive. So obviously, Dudley's obviously going to a different kind of school.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense.
It's just whether they're paying for his education or not.
So Smeltings is a grammar school. You have to be smart. Huh? Smeltings is a boarding school.
But does it also accept A students?
A students? I don't know what that means.
Because most boarding schools offer boarding and like day students that come and go.
I wonder where it is.
Let me look it up.
That would be, yeah. I couldn't imagine that they would send their precious Duddykins away, or if they did, they would like let him board there just like for his own enjoyment, and they would go visit every single day, giving him cookies and presents every day. You know.
Yeah, for sure. It must be that, because I not suggested maybe a grammar school, but I may be wrong that because obviously I was educated in Ireland. But don't you need to do like an entrance exam for a grammar school? So it's like the more intelligent people.
Yeah, you have to take a test before you get in. So, like, yeah, probably Dudley wouldn't get into that, to be fair.
Unless there's nobody else in the catchment area with IQ of higher than 80. Like,
well, it was Vernon's old school, so money talks. Maybe he paid, you know.
Yeah, nepotism's great.
Speaking as someone who does not understand boarding schools at all, do you get to go home on the weekends if you're boarded?
I think
it
so.
depends on how far the school.
I think it depends on where. Yeah.
I went to boarding school, and you could go home at the weekends. You know, so it kind of depended on where you lived. Like if people were living in the other side of the country or in a different country, they generally stay at the weekends. But in most of them, and mine certainly, you couldn't stay during the holidays. You had to go somewhere, whether that was to your own home, a friend's home, or a host family. Because all the teachers obviously wanted to go home for the holidays. It wasn't like Hogwarts, where Hogwarts is their life, and they're not allowed to have any social life outside of it.
So it does sound like Petunia would be home more often than Lily, even if she was boarded.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's they're that whole dynamic is really interesting to me. I wonder if I think Petunia definitely played the victim card as well. Like, I don't think her parents necessarily, maybe this is just like in my own head, I feel like her parents necessarily wouldn't neglect her, but Petunia would just feel neglected because, you know, her sister's just overshadowing her. So maybe there's like a little bit of active, maybe there's just a little bit of like, it's just on Petunia's part that she's just, you know, woe is me.
Yeah, well, things feel different when you're a kid.
Yeah.
I remember feeling overshadowed by my older siblings.
Oh, yeah.
And then I was like, oh, no, I'm good at these things, and they're good at those things.
Yeah, then you come into your own. Same thing. I have older siblings, and all of them overshadowed me. They're all smarter, more athletic than me. And then there was a point where I was like, you know what? I'm going to nerd out about Harry Potter. I know Harry Potter better than you guys.
I mean, I don't know what any of you are talking about, because I am and have always been the favorite child. Now, it may be because I am the only child, but it means that they simply do not have a choice but to like me best. Sometimes I'm still not the favorite, but you know.
Oh, yeah, my older siblings and I talk. I'm definitely my mom's favorite kid, but it doesn't mean that I didn't feel like I was being overshadowed by my older siblings.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah. Poor Petunia. I can't believe I said that. Poor Petunia. Anything else in the chapter before we go on to the next one, which is the Keeper of the Keys?
I don't know. Do you want to ask that question again?
What question?
Anything else about this chapter?
Well, we keep talking about stuff, so I'm like, is there anything else? Are we? I feel like we're just skimming the surface on some of the stuff in this chapter, but. Yeah. All right, let's